All right, we're live. Go ahead, Dale.
Okay, trustee Van Riper,
Yes.
trustee Putnam,
Here.
trustee Walshipski, not yet, and Mayor Mosher.
Yes. All right, thanks, Dale. We will lead. We have our specialists here today. I think we'll lead with our attorney, Michelle Kennedy. What'd you bring for us tonight, Michelle?
Sure. Robin, did you want me to launch right into our resolution?
I didn't hear you.
Did you want me to launch right into our resolutions?
If you could bring everybody up to speed as far as you think you need to let them know what's going on. I've done my best, but it's not quite as good as yours.
Okay, all right. And at certain points, as we discuss more specifically the resolutions, I may try to share the screen in case there's questions regarding the particular documents. So with respect to the stormwater green infrastructure project, EFC has a number of requirements. Many of those are, of course, engineering requirements, and some are legal. At this stage of the proceedings, this is still considered part of their phase 1, and we're approaching the June 30th deadline. In advance of that deadline, some of the items that we have to cover, of course, have to do with the usual secret resolution. We're going to entertain a resolution to authorize the project as well as the signing of the grant agreement and the appointment of the minority business officer, as well as a local match resolution. And then finally, we'll discuss in greater detail a bond resolution if it becomes necessary. And so the trustees should have received in advance of this meeting by email 5 resolutions, and those are the 5 resolutions that you would have received in advance. And as I said, if there's questions regarding the particular documents, I can attempt to share the screen and we can discuss the particular provisions. The only resolution that would require more than 3 votes is the bond resolution, which we'll address last. The others will just require a simple majority, which is 3 votes of the total voting power of the board. So the first, I realize that the board has previously adopted a type 2 resolution with respect to this project, as it does constitute retrofitting of an existing structure or structures to incorporate a green infrastructure. And so the primary purpose in now presenting this resolution is the prior type 2 resolutions, when we've looked at the language closely, they have addressed each stage of the proceedings to this point, as opposed to the project in its entirety. And so as legal counsel, we're always looking ahead to, as we request disbursements of EFC, that there will not be any cause to deny disbursements, and a flaw in the procedure could be one cause to deny a disbursement. So it's important in that respect that our procedure is impeccable. And that's one of the reasons why we're reviewing each of these steps, and to the extent that we need to perfect what has been done to this point legally, we're taking the steps to do so. So the first resolution that I would ask the board to consider is the type 2 resolution. And again, this is designating the project itself as a type 2 action under SECRA, and indicating that it does constitute retrofitting of an existing structure as green infrastructure. And those are the material provisions of that particular resolution. Again, if there are questions, though, I'm happy to discuss those in greater detail and pull up the document if that's useful.
Does anybody have any questions regarding the confirmation of type 2 action? Do we need to read that in its entirety, or can we?
No, it's on file with the clerk. It's been distributed to the members of the board, and it's certainly available for any member of the public that wishes to access a copy. So I think in the interest of time, it's not unnecessary to read verbatim each of the resolutions. Can you hear me okay, Robin?
Very good. So then, if there is no objection, your picture froze, but I can hear, there you go. If there is no objection by the trustees or any questions to be asked or comments to be made? We're having trouble with my internet now. Everybody still hear me?
Yep.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
All right. Then I'll entertain a motion to adopt the resolution to confirm the type 2 action for our green infrastructure project.
So moved.
And a second. Luke, you need to unmute. Dale, can you unmute Luke, please?
All participants are unmuted.
Thank you.
There we go.
There
It
we-
let me. It said I was muted by the host.
Yeah, I heard that.
I'm not even touching anything. That's so funny.
I clicked on it. It said I can't unmute myself. It said I was muted by the host. So,
All
but we're
right.
good now.
Oh,
Yes, I'm good with it.
Okay, and I'll need a second. And Kevin's made the motion. I'll need a second.
I'll second.
We can't even see Barb anymore. Barb?
you need a roll.
Yeah, I wonder if Barb can call in. Luke, can you text her to see if she can call in
I can, yeah.
and avoid the computer? In the meantime, this one doesn't require her to vote. We have enough of a majority. There she is. Barb? Barb, are you there? All right, so let's call the vote, please, Dale.
Okay, trustee Van Riper,
Yes.
trustee Putnam,
Yes.
Mayor Mosher,
Try Walshipski. Yes,
trustee Walshipski,
he just left. There she is.
and Mayor Mosher.
Okay, 3, yes. All right, moving on to the next resolution, authorizing the project and the execution of the EFC grant agreement. Do you want to speak to that, Michelle?
So just briefly, so again, this simply authorizes the project in its entirety, including both costs that would be eligible and ineligible for EFC grant funding. And we'll speak about those in greater detail with respect to the local match resolution. And then beyond the authorization of the project, it does also authorize the mayor, or in the mayor's absence, the deputy mayor, and the treasurer and clerk, as may be required by EFC, to execute the grant agreements and related documents as part of the project.
Okay. Are there any questions, objections, or comments regarding that? Luke just went out again. Regarding that resolution.
There we go. No.
No.
Okay, then we'll go forward with a motion to adopt
So moved.
and a second
Second.
and a vote.
Yes.
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 Don't you want it by roll call?
Yeah, you can do that next time, Dale. I'm watching Barb, sorry. Let's move on to the next resolution.
So the next resolution simply designates the minority business officer as required by EFC for compliance with the various statutes that are listed, including Article 15A of the Executive Law, Title 6 and 7 of the Civil Rights Act, and the provision, the New York State rules and regulations regarding service disabled veteran businesses. And Dale would be appointed under this resolution as the village's minority business officer.
Okay. And that, not that I'm anticipating that, but that would go with the position, not the person, right?
Correct. That's right.
Okay. All right then. Any questions, comments? All right. Motion to adopt the resolution regarding the appointment of the minority business officer.
So moved.
And a second.
Second.
And a vote? Call it, Dale.
Trustee Walshipski, trustee
Okay.
Van Riper,
Yes.
trustee Putnam,
Yes.
Mayor Mosher.
Yes. All right. The local match resolution.
So with respect to the local match, there's two prongs to take into account. The first is EFC's requirement for a 10% minimum local match. And EFC has provided the exact figure to us of that the minimum local match, which is the $111,112. That we have identified as we must two potential sources of funds for the minimum local match. The first is the general fund as designated for highway expenditures, specifically CHIPS. And the second is the possibility of borrowing if necessary through serial bonds or bond anticipation notes. The second prong of that particular resolution regards the funding of what EFC regards as the maximum local match, and the material part of the maximum local match for the purpose of our discussion is the difference between the minimum local match and the maximum, which according to John McManus and the call and Cindy Falk is approximately $74,000. And that difference accounts for the $185,000 that you'll see referenced in addition to the base grant amount of $1 million, which of course would be the maximum amount of funding through the grant for a total project cost of the $1,185,000. So with respect to the difference between the minimum local match and the maximum local match, there are three potential sources of funding. You have the same two for the minimum local match, which is the CHIPS program, the potential of borrowing if necessary, and then the last would be residual funds that rest in the village's account for the community development block grant. CDBG through HUD has provided authorization to allow us to apply those funds, provided certain procedural requirements are met. If for any reason EFC wouldn't allow the application of those funds, we would have to look to the other two sources that are named, which is CHIPS and the local financing through either bonds or notes.
Right. The only thing with the CHIPS program right now is Cuomo is not releasing any state money whatsoever
Okay.
for any of it because he's crying that we're in rough straits anyway. Now the black grant, that would cover the 185,000.
No, it doesn't. So with respect, so there's, again, EFC does require that the village, in order to receive the $1 million in grant funding, the village must contribute 10% of the total eligible project costs.
Right,
And-
so we'd have to come up with 111,000.
Correct. And so they will not allow us to apply CDBG funding for that minimum local match of the $111 and some thousand. Their reasoning is that the program requirements preclude the local match originating from federal funds, which CDBG funds are, because the source of the GIGP grant also originates from federal funds. So their reasoning is that it's not in fact a match because you're pulling from the same pool of money. And that's why we are able to identify that additional source of funds for the difference between the minimum and the maximum local match, because EFC, from what we understand, that we could receive clarification that could change this, but at this point in time, from what they have said, they would not preclude us from applying those funds to the difference between the minimum and local match, which is the approximately $74,000. So, and that's precisely, Kevin, that's precisely the reason why we named alternate sources of funding, because keep in mind the project is anticipated to stretch over at least 2 years. And so the availability of certain funds may change over that period of time. And that's the reason why we want to leave various options open, so that the village has some ability, to pull from different pools if necessary. It may be worth just having some brief discussion regarding the bond resolution, because that, of course, those are the terms that under which one of those sources of funds would be dictated. Right now, the bond resolution, you could elect to finance over a longer period of time, but at this very preliminary point, we've laid forth in the bond resolution is that the term of financing would not exceed 5 years. And there's some advantageous reasons, again, procedurally, to keep the financing within that period of time. But if it becomes necessary for the village to finance a portion of the cost over a longer period of time, the resolution could certainly be amended very easily, and you could extend that term of financing if you needed to. But again, the primary message is that certainly without that 10% local match, you will not qualify for the $1 million in grant funding. So, the EFC puts this carrot out there to encourage municipalities to contribute by saying if you give 10%, then you'll get $1 million in return.
That answer your question, Kevin?
Yes, that did.
All right.
Thank you.
We hope to be able to use the CHIPS monies, but as an alternative, we have general fund monies available.
Okay.
Or could be made available.
And you do have a few fiscal years over which to budget for the project.
Right.
Even if you were to take absolutely no financing whatsoever, you still have at least the next 2 fiscal years to budget as part of the process.
Now the bond resolution, does that have to be made tonight?
So the bond resolution, yes, to meet the June 30th deadline, and as part of this local match resolution, what the bond resolution does is it's simply the initial step in terms of financing. So if you later decide to finance, you need to have a bond resolution that's been adopted and been subject to what's called an estoppel period. The estoppel period is a 20-day period following adoption of the bond resolution, in which a notice is placed in the paper, and there's an opportunity for anyone to contest that the bond resolution was not legally adopted or not adopted for a legal purpose. If that period is exhausted and there's no contest during that period of time, then the bond resolution remains in place, and the board can then decide at some point in the future whether or not to actually borrow. It's just simply that you put in place the required procedural vehicle to borrow later if you choose to. So adopting the bond resolution, for instance, one of the items that a municipality would want to be concerned with is your constitutional debt limit, because towns and villages, you're only allowed to borrow up to 7% of your taxable assessed value. And so in the case of the village of Richfield Springs, for you, that limit is somewhere around $3 million. In looking at what is currently outstanding, you're a little over half of that amount, unless some of it is excluded by the Office of the State Comptroller. And so a municipality does want to be careful about not exhausting their constitutional debt limit. But here, you're by adopting the bond resolution, we're not issuing any bonds or notes. You don't issue the bonds and notes until you go to closing, which means that you do not exhaust any of your constitutional debt limits simply by adopting a bond resolution. Does that make sense? So we're just sort of setting this up that you have a variety of options available to you. It's kind of like like qualifying for a line of credit, but not actually.
Not a commitment. It's not a commitment.
Correct. Well, I mean, it's a commitment in the sense of you're authorizing the village to borrow, but it's if you need to.
Okay.
And that plan of financing is also laid out in the bond resolution. It does specifically state the same, which is you're only going to borrow if it becomes necessary.
Okay. Right now, I don't think we can go forward with that. I'm trying to get Barb to maybe call in,
Okay,
but she's our fourth tonight.
sure. Okay,
Okay.
okay.
So, other than that, then do we need you to do that, or I'm sure you want to hear it?
The local match resolution, Robin, if we could do the roll call vote on that particular resolution.
Oh, we went past it. I'm sorry. Yes.
That's okay. The explanation made sense to provide for both together, so.
Okay. All right, then, yeah, the resolution regarding the local match, that was explained just before the bond discussion. There were no questions, no comments? All right, then, how about a motion to adopt?
So moved.
And a second,
Second,
and a vote?
yes.
Yes.
Yes. All right.
And then for the bond resolution, just in terms of timing, Robin, so Barb is not online at this meeting. When would the village's next meeting be?
I'm trying to get her to call in right now.
Okay.
Um,
I'm
I
in,
texted
I'm
her.
in,
She's in.
I hear
Okay,
Barb.
she's in.
I'm in.
Okay, good.
Barbara's here.
Barb, do you,
Yeah,
we discussed, we went through the five resolutions that were brought to us tonight for tonight's meeting. And we're currently up to the fifth resolution, the bond resolution.
okay.
You're certainly welcome to ask any questions or make any comments, regarding the bond that we want to get passed while Michelle's still with us, or at least discuss more. Do you have any questions? Do you have any questions for Michelle?
No, I didn't.
Okay, so you understand what we're here, what we're doing?
Yep.
We're providing for the opportunity to maybe issue a bond?
Yes.
Okay. All right, then, if there are no further questions, comments, or requests of anybody, I'll take a motion to vote on the bond resolution for the adoption of a bond resolution.
So moved.
And a second.
I'll second.
Okay, Dale, you want to call it?
Yep, trustee Walshipski,
Yes.
trustee Van Riper,
Yes.
trustee Putnam,
Yes.
and Mayor Mosher.
Yes, thank you.
We are
And
done.
MWBE is taken care of, right?
It is.
All right. I'm just going through the page that you sent today. That was real helpful. Is there anything else you want to add or comment on, any other subjects?
The only other piece, and I'm not sure if John's on the line, but the only other piece that EFC may ask us to show the village's support for has to do with the MWB utilization plan under the engineering contract. And as the village knows, Cindy Falk has been an integral part of the process, both in terms of securing the grant and working with McManus Engineering, I think, to this point. And I know that it's very much their intention, from what I understand, they have a contract in place for her to continue to be a part of this process. Her MWBE certification is pending, and from my perspective, it would be in the village's best interest if her MWBE certification was granted in short order. The EFC's MWBE unit has indicated to us that they will, upon the village's request, make a request to Empire State Development, another state agency, to the corresponding MWBE unit there to expedite her application. And again, I think that she'll play an integral role, particularly in terms of the construction contracts when it comes to bidding, to ensure that all of the various requirements are met. And that includes everything from MWBE participation, utilization plans, to prevailing wage requirements, just many statutory requirements, EEO policy statements that have to be submitted. And as I said at the beginning of our discussion, if any procedural requirement is not met, it becomes problematic for the village in terms of collecting the disbursements from ESC. And so you do want someone on board who is exceptionally exceptional at that type of oversight and very detail oriented. And I think McManus Engineering has, tapped into Cindy's talent in that regard for this very reason. So I do think it would be helpful to have a motion, if the village is willing to entertain one, that they would like her to be part of the utilization plan, and that they would ask ESD and EFC to please expedite her certification so that she can be a part of this project.
Okay, and is that something we have to get together and offer to the EFC?
No, it's just if it could appear in your minutes rather for this meeting, I think that would be sufficient.
And it won't entail redoing the resolution to?
No, nothing has to be redone. It's just, it's sort of an add-on. We would have preferred to have a complete utilization plan. The other MWBE that I think John intends to use, and I don't mean to speak for him, I'm just not sure if he's on or not, I can't see, but if the other MWBE that they were thinking of is a surveyor, and that surveyor has not been particularly named, but again, if the village could show support for that, at least those two functions, and particularly Cindy Fox MWBE certification, I think that would be very helpful.
Okay, so how would you want to word it for my
Sure.
trustees to make a motion?
So just a motion in support of a proposed utilization plan for Cindy Fox as an MWBE subcontractor and a MWBE surveyor. In particular, the village board wishes to express support in favor of Cindy Fox MWBE certification being expedited.
Okay, does everybody understand and want to endorse that?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. So I have a motion from Luke,
Second.
and call the vote, Dale?
Trustee Walshipski,
Yes.
trustee Van Riper,
Yes.
trustee Putnam,
Yes.
and Mayor Mosher.
Yes, thank you.
Michelle, I am on if you can hear me. And I
Okay.
All right, there you are.
Everything you said. So,
John, did you just hear the last piece there?
I did. I've heard it all. I agree with everything, Michelle. I didn't want to interrupt.
That's okay.
All right,
Thank you.
all right. Well, I guess we'll have, John, do you have anything to add tonight?
I really don't, other than I want to thank Michelle for all her hard work. This has been a interesting couple of weeks trying to get all these numbers and everything together, and she's been a lot of work on this. I do appreciate your support for Cindy. I'm trying to assemble the best team I can here. I'd like to run a little lean, so
Carter.
I do appreciate that. And then I'll stick around, Michelle, if you wanted to talk about the water system later. I don't know what your agenda is.
Sure. So Robin, I think we'll leave that to your discretion as to the raw water lines. John,
Yeah,
whenever you're ready for that.
if you're ready tonight, I'll be happy to let you take care of all of your business, and then if you choose to leave, you may.
Sure. Okay. So, and I do not have much to report. John may have more because he's had the discussions, from what I understand, with Department of Health. I have simply made one suggestion to John, and this was just within the last 24 hours. So I'm not sure that he has had any time to, particularly with everything else on the table with EFC right now, to pursue this. But the one suggestion is, of course, this project, more so than any other aspect of it. The biggest issue is, of course, finding the necessary funding to appropriately address the issue. And I think that from my standpoint, I do not want to speak from an engineering standpoint, but just to suggest that we're going to place wells on each of these properties, I think is a really rudimentary option. I think that the village has to look at alternate funding sources if they are available. And I know that particularly now with the COVID situation, the likelihood is much less than what it was, but nonetheless, some of this funding does come from the federal government as opposed to the state government. So I still think it's worth some research as to what funding may be available, but in particular, looking at one of the engineering planning grants, which would allow some additional funding to look at, in particular, an extension of the main, which I realize is, a much more expensive undertaking as opposed to the wells. But again, the wells, I would have to spend more time researching whether or not that's feasible, not just as a practical matter, but even legally or with respect to Department of Health regulations. The extension of the main, I can say with confidence that that's something that legally the village can accomplish. I think the problem becomes the fiscal aspect of extending a main, as all of you know. So I think that John is in agreement that that's worth looking at. First, the engineering planning grant, if we can have the timeline extended to allow for that. And then beyond the engineering planning grant, if we could look at, for instance, WIA funding through EFC. There is a lot of funding available. There's the last conference I attended, they said that within a generation, they have not seen this much funding available for water and sewer. And many of the surrounding municipalities have been the beneficiaries of that funding, including Cooperstown and Sharon Springs. So it seems to me that, Richfield Springs should stand to benefit as well. But I think some additional research has to be done in terms of exploring those options. And of course, pushing out with Department of Health the timeline to allow us to do so.
Yeah, I can comment briefly on that. Michelle, I did speak with Shane since we spoke last. He reached out to me and we touched base on this. I explained to him our situation and I told him, I said, I feel like this is a Band-Aid was thrown on this and the Department of Health kind of pushed it aside and now it's coming back up again. I think they feel the same way. I don't think anyone's excited to get back into this. That said, I think Shane agrees with me and I'm hoping he speaks for the Department of Health at this point, that the money has to be there and the village can't really do anything until the money's there. And we're not going to expect this money to come out of the pockets of the taxpayers for this water main extension, especially if they're already in the district. So I told him we were going to have a meeting tonight, and then I am over the next 2 weeks investigating what grants may be available to small municipalities because we have a couple others that are asking. With everything going on, I don't know what's going to happen with timelines and due dates and things like that. So it's a bit of it's up in the air a bit. That said, I think everyone's in agreement, including Department of Health, and I'll get back to them after tonight's meeting in an email, but I think everyone's in agreement. We've got to find the money because otherwise it's just going to be an argument and a discussion, and the end result is there's no money to pay for it. So I agree with what Michelle said, and that's what we're going to be looking at. Hopefully, I'll have an answer for you or some answers by your next meeting.
Okay. Well, I thank both of you for taking this matter up because it does get taken up and then pushed aside, and it's time to do something about it. So we finish it finally.
Yep.
For everybody's better interest.
Okay.
I agree.
Did you have any more for us tonight, Michelle?
I do not. In terms of the Bronner matter,
Yeah.
we're just simply waiting on the court's order. And I haven't received any updates. I do understand that the court's closed at this point. That's the latest that I heard. So I have not received any word otherwise. So.
All right. So we've gone forward with what we had to do.
Yeah, so they had our initial proposed order at the time that we first submitted our papers. There was one procedural objection that was raised. And so both at the last conference that was addressed, it was addressed in our responsive papers. And I have since submitted a proposed order that recommends to the court an option that they could consider if the court shares the same concern. It had to do with the the objection was raised that the court didn't sign a paper that's called the order to show cause. And so, you know, the court has to decide how they want to treat that document again, but it was the court's non-signature. It wasn't anything that we didn't execute.
Okay. All right. Is there anything else we need to do tonight as far as you're concerned? Or
I don't
anything?
think so. The only other update, the ambulance, again, I think with the COVID situation, probably Department of Health is overwhelmed. I haven't received any further word from them. From the last that I heard, each of the participating areas had reached out to Department of Health as they were asked to do for what, you know, many were concerned with. It was termed an inspection. I think it's really just a review of paperwork, but from what I understand, they all were responsive. And I just, from what the most that I've heard is they have not received any response from DOH, which isn't surprising.
Surprised, right? Okay. Well, thanks for everything. I know we kind of piled you high this time.
That's okay. That's okay. Sounds good.
John, how are we doing with you? We're on schedule, aren't we? For the EFC grant?
Yes, we're all set. Yeah, Cindy and Michelle have done a lot of the heavy lifting on this. So the technical information is just about done. I think, Michelle, I just sent you an email I just got from Tamara, so we can talk about that tomorrow. It has to do with Cindy's certification.
Okay.
So other than that, Michelle, I think we're probably good to get everything in, but this week and certainly by the end of next week, right?
Yeah, so, yep. And in terms of the easements, I'll just say that that was another requirement for us initially by June 30th, but we held a conference with EFC approximately a week and a half ago, and they've agreed that until the final engineering designs have been completed and we have a surveyor who has provided legal description, that the easements would not have to be in place. So that will be a part of the process that will now occur as part of phase 2 as opposed to this phase 1.
Okay. All right. Does anybody have questions for our attorney or for our engineer? I think you've done a good job.
All right, thank you.
Your time.
I'm sorry, John, I didn't hear you.
Thank you for your time.
Oh,
Really-
you're welcome. Thank you.
Take care.
All right, we'll move on then if we're all done there. Thank you.
Okay, bye-bye.
Good night. I see, let's see, going through the lists, we have property maintenance tonight?
I got nothing for write-ups as of right now. Everything's been handled that I either went to, spoke to the people, or wrote, and they've taken care of it so far.
Okay. All right, thank you. And we're not hearing anything from Stewart's.
No. Is the board going to make a decision on that tonight?
There's no decision to be made as far as I can see.
What?
Up to them they have
Wait.
to contact the county and whatnot.
No, we have to, we were given a set of papers, but they weren't very informative.
That's. Can I make a suggestion?
Please.
My suggestion is that what they gave to you in the application, my suggestion is to deny it, and based off the information they gave you, and make them resubmit with the criteria that you need to meet, because or at least in writing. So if not, deny it. If someone in writing from the board, send an email to Stewart's and saying the board cannot make a fair assessment based off the information. This is what we're requiring.
Okay. Has everybody had a chance to look over the materials that were sent to us?
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
We talked about certain things like the lack of an engineer stamp. Really, what was the problem that was being addressed? That there was no clear indication as to what they plan to gain from this project, or how it would impact any neighboring properties or even their own. And we had some other questions too, if I remember, about drainage from the front. There was a concern that the gasoline might be drained.
I brought that question up to DEC, to Tom Blanchard,
Okay.
and he was 100% agrees with Luke's question on that. They need to specify that. He said most of the time, 9 times out of 10, a fuel gas station will have a separator that's within the ground that will separate it. They had something similar happen up in Albany, I think he said it was, and what it does is actually somehow this system separates it. And I don't know. He called it a separator.
Okay.
Also with that, with things we're learning more and more as we're going along with this is now we're learning that the school is adding on to this drainage. So we're going to need to assess that situation too.
Right. And my biggest concern was it being near or actually part of a flood zone, an actual
Absolutely.
Class A flood zone. So I'm looking for some guidance from the Board of Trustees. What would you have us do? Do we accept the application? Do we deny it? We ask them for more information?
I think we should ask for more information at least.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. It was kind of vague, everything. They really didn't, like you said, they didn't explain why they had to do this right now, and they didn't get the permits that they really needed to for doing it on a floodplain.
All right. Well, it's up to us to get
We're-
to do the zoning permit, and then they have to get the permits from the county
Right.
after that.
Right, but they didn't even come to us, and
We have an application. We do have an application, don't you, Joe?
Yeah, and it's not.
Yeah,
And
it's right
the way it is this is not really a zoning situation. This is something that the board is doing a plan review on. This is for the board to be satisfied with information to pass it on to our floodplain administrator for him to be able to sign off on. And if there's in more detail that he needs on his level for the best interest of us, I'm sure he'll advise stewards. And then as a county level for code wise, then that's something separate. But the way I'm understanding this is not fall underneath zoning so much as a plan review done by the board.
Okay, so as our planning board representatives, I guess I'll accept written questions from email, and we'll put those together and try to put together a letter. If anybody has suggestions, and things they want to include in the letter, it'd probably be best to have it in written form. Would you say, Joe?
Yeah, I think that's great. A great idea. I sent you a list a couple weeks ago.
Oh, yours,
I
yeah.
still have that.
Yeah.
Definitely add Luke's question in there because it's a great question. It really is. And whatever else. And the next thing is get them to say yes, the school is adding on to this, because this is the first we heard of it when I gave stewards a heads up of what you guys are going to be looking for.
Okay, so I'll put that together. We can't do anything before the next meeting. I'll get that together and have it for your review for the next meeting. All right, so don't hesitate to send me some ideas.
And I think the number one thing is definitely engineer stamp. And I stressed that to him when I spoke to him, that's one thing that the board is going to need. They need an engineer assessment, impact, all of that stuff, negative, positive. I mean, the key thing is, yes, we know this is a drainage situation. We know that, but can I define that by what they wrote? No, we don't know. Is this to deal with a 100-year floodplain? Because if it is, the DEC came out and said this is not efficient at all. It won't take care of the problem. It won't do anything. Now, if this is strictly to restrict water flow, they said, yeah, very well could be possible. It would work. So we need to know that. We need everything in writing.
Okay. All right, then I'll get to
So
that.
you're saying,
Go ahead.
you're saying that if it wasn't in a floodplain, that these drawings would be sufficient?
It could be. It may be. I really don't. I can't really answer that because whenever it involves water, my opinion is it always should be looked at just in case, because where you're directing that water? Is it going to affect something down the road of that's going to go into a floodplain? Is it going to make the floodplain worse? Prime example. I always use Monticello Street the most because that's where I am. We don't have drainage ditches up here. So what happens when you add that in and you're directing that water? Where's that water going? I always feel it should be looked at, but they are, the reason why we are being so stingent on this one is because it is in a flood zone. It is in a floodplain. They are affecting that, and those are the areas that are regulated by FEMA, and if it ends up being in wetlands and stuff like that, then it's regulated by the Army Corps of Engineers and DEC. The one thing DEC stressed about this is they can give you recommendations. They can't do anything more than that. Their job is to enforce if it's done without permits.
Okay.
Every job
And
I've
did you
ever done like this, I've done a lot of drainage jobs and stuff like that, and every single job I've ever had to do, I've had to write full-on applications to the Army Corps of Engineers, have it stamped by an engineer and signed off on everything before they, and that was for homeowners. That's for a regular average homeowner's drainage. And if they're anywhere near the lake, it's an even more lengthy process.
Yeah.
So I mean, the fact that all this is going on and the drain is gonna daylight everything into the stream or the river, however you would like to word it. I feel like it's super important that they at least have the proper legal procedures in place, as well as a plan. And so far, I haven't seen a plan that's really laid out or defining, or there's really no scope. There's no, and the school aspect of all of it also needs to be spoke about and talked about, and we need the definition on all of that as well. So I think right now we're really in no place to agree or disagree with anything that's come in. I think they need to get us a lot more information and permission.
Okay.
And you're absolutely, from what I looked at with our local law with the flood preventive measures in there, the one thing that I spoke with our floodplain administrator is he's the type that always plays devil advocate. You know what I mean? And his thing was, well, how do you know you have the right to ask for these things? It clearly defines it in our flood review, our flood laws, because the word of development. If you look at the word development that's defined in our flood zone, it talks about excavating anything. So because of that one word development, we absolutely can ask for anything that's listed in that chapter.
Mm-hmm.
Anybody else right now? All right, Joe, thanks for your report. I see we have our Public Works people on tonight. Joe Combs.
Hello.
Hey, what do you have for us tonight? Anything?
Not really. Just
enjoying the
working as
fun, huh?
usual.
All right. Doing a nice job out there. We appreciate your work. I know you're shorthanded.
Yeah,
Things are
thank
gonna
you.
get better.
Yeah. I'll just throw it out there. The cemetery's pretty much cleaned up and ready to be mowed for the first time when it's time.
I noticed that. Thank you.
So at least we got one thing done.
Did you get to talk to our cemetery section about the trees?
No, I haven't yet. I still have to call her at some point.
That's a plug. I'm gonna hook you two up. You have a discussion to have. All right.
Yeah.
All right. Anything else? How are you set with sanitizers and things like that, Joe?
Yeah, I think we're good.
Okay. I think we have a lead on some more if we need to.
Okay.
All right. Thanks for your work. Appreciate it.
No problem. That's why I'm here.
All right. Our library's joining us tonight. Hi, Mindy.
Hi.
How are you tonight?
Good. How about you guys?
Good, thanks. Are you pleased with the progress of the paperwork anyway for your project?
Yeah, we were just a little confused because we thought we would be able to get a order of commencement to start the work prior to when the state actually allows us to start doing construction. Because we wanted to try to get it done and completed so we can continue the planning on what we need before we can open.
Okay, then I misunderstood your questions then, I guess.
Okay.
We can't order anybody to do construction, not until the governor says it's all right.
Okay, because that's what I was confused
But
about.
you do have the consent of this board to continue the project.
Okay.
As soon as it's legal from the state perspective.
Right,
Can-
which is great. Thank you.
Can I put my
Yeah.
codes hat on real quick?
Oh, uh-oh, you just woke up the lion. What do you need, Joe?
So as codes, the first thing what they wanted, the codes office wanted was to know everything was clear through the village.
Yeah.
Then from that, he says my boss says this, he needs a set of plans. No one can do any work without a full set of plans.
Right.
So that needs to be completed. Now he knows that the village is okayed it. Once those plans, and I believe he talked to your contractor, and I think that that's in the works to get the plans to him, if not already done.
Yeah.
Once it's up to him from there. If he says, yeah, you can do it, then he can, if he sees it's essential, then that's between you and him and probably the village also and talk about. But I know there's certain projects he's deemed essential, and there's some that he hasn't. It's all circumstantial, especially with the executive order.
Okay. Yeah, we did get the plans for the project to Tony Gentile. Sorry.
Yep.
I forgot his last name for a minute there.
That's all right.
And he did issue us the permit, and
Good.
he stated in his email that it has to wait until construction is allowed to start up
Okay.
again. So
Right,
That's
and
what-
just a point on that, Friday when all this goes away, they are talking about construction will be one of the first ones in the phase-in.
right.
So that won't be until after Friday, or possibly Friday itself.
Friday's morning.
Governor hasn't given a timeline on,
The best recommendation is to call into the code office and on Monday morning and say, okay, where do we stand?
Okay.
Let Tony decipher what the governor's ordered or what is coming down the line from the governor's office and also from the state codes.
Okay. All right. Well, that's what I'm trying to understand right now is I know we're probably in phase 4 of the reopening, more than likely, because
Yeah.
it's at this point where we're not even sure how to continue to cleanse anything from the library, like books and everything else that comes back and forth. So I know it's going to be a lot longer for us to reopen. So I can understand that. It's just the board was a little hoping we could get it going faster, but yeah.
I would call Tony Monday and see where
Okay.
things stand.
Okay, great. Thank you.
All right, good. So then you understand that now, as far as
Yeah.
village board is concerned, you have a green light.
Oh, yes, definitely.
Okay, good.
Thank you.
All right, thanks for showing up tonight. Anything else? How's everything over there? No?
Good.
All right.
Just waiting.
Okay, well,
Yeah.
be patient. Be
Yeah.
patient. We'll get there. All right, thank you, Mindy.
Thank you.
Thanks for the
Have
help.
a good night. Yes.
Good
thank
night.
you.
All right. I guess that's a nice segue to my my first order of business, and that's to request from the board permission to call back our essential workers. We have 2 that are out, and on Friday, we will be able to call them back and as normal everyday work. Right now, everybody's off with pay. I would call the essential workers back and end their unquestioned, unrestricted time off. I don't intend to do that, and it's at the board's discretion also. I would hope we don't do that for the part-time workers that are out. We still have the capacity to pay them, and we can't call them back yet. They're phase 2 anyway. So if there's no objection, I would like to call back our essential workers full-time.
Robin, I'm sorry, but and then the part-time people are in a second phase, is that what you said?
As the governor laid out, let me see if I can share this. Governor has offered us a phased restructuring here, and in the first phase is construction, which would be our road crew. we need to get things in order because traffic is gonna be picking up soon, I'm sure. So they would be in the first phase. Second phase would be our administrative people and our government offices. And at that time, I guess it's like 14 days forward, we would call them back.
Okay.
That sounds good to me.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now I have to figure out how to
Yeah.
stop sharing my screen. All right, so then I'll make those calls.
Okay, great.
All right,
Good.
thank you.
They are doing a good job at cleaning.
Yeah, we have all of those provisions for them.
Uh-huh.
We're getting masks all the time, and we have new places to find masks. I just found that the county EMS has sanitizer. If we need it, we can get there and get that. All right. But before we get off that subject, though, I would feel remiss if I didn't mention that we should thank everybody, whether they stayed home or they came to work, because everybody contributed to this. And we couldn't have gotten this far without everybody's contribution.
I agree.
So I'll send the letters, and I'll send an email or a memo rather with paychecks and explain what we decided tonight. Going on,
Okay.
the electric company got a hold of me. Seems that we have been paying for a street lamp that has not been functioning. So good news is they're going to send us a credit. They're going to figure it and send it. The question asked of me though was, do we want to keep that light working? Do we want to make it work, or do we want to just get rid of it? The light is down. It's number 1 Lake Street. I never noticed that it wasn't out. I take their word for it, but we can have it replaced as part of the rest of the schedule because we're paying for it, or we can discontinue the service of it. That would be a question I have to ask of you tonight. Does anybody have
Where is,
number 1 Lake? So it's got to be right around the corner there. I think it's just past the corner, down toward the back of the first building there. The one on the east side of the street. One ahead of the Vets Club.
yeah, by the,
No, ahead of the Vets Club, back by the first building. Where the fitness.
Country Cutter.
Yeah, Country Cutter, thank you. Oh, I think it's up that
Oh.
way. That's the only one I can figure that doesn't work.
I think we should go ahead and have it fixed.
Yeah, I do too.
Good.
I don't see any reason why we shouldn't do that. So
No, okay, good. Then I'll make that. I'll send that to them. At the same time, I'm going to send. They missed 2 of our poles. There are 2 old Cobra heads on 2 poles, so I'll send them pictures of that, and they'll fix those up right away.
okay.
Land Bank updated me. Let's see if I can find that. John Mazzarella. I've been asking for an update from the Land Bank people, and I finally got one. We started this before the COVID started, and they put off coming to visit us in anticipation of being shut down. So the update is that 20 Lake Street, they're working with HCR on a multi-site property aggregation to pitch to developers. Sounds like they're having trouble getting anybody to bite for it, but they might be able to package it up and sell it that way. The other 2 properties, 27 Candarego and 177 East Main, are listed, and they said they hope to have them sold this year and get them back on the tax rolls. But I don't know what kind of activity they've had with those.
I've seen people looking at the one here in Candarego.
Have
I
you?
know.
Good.
Yep, and I know the guy that lives next door, Josh, there, he's very interested in it.
All
'Cause he
right.
doesn't have much lawn.
Right.
oh,
right.
yeah.
It's kind of what we expected to happen with those, isn't it?
Yeah, I was hoping.
That one, yeah. All right, good. And that's it for me tonight. We have no other new business, so we'll move on. If there's no objection, we'll waive the reading of the minutes from the previous meeting on the 21st of April and make a motion to adopt those.
So moved.
So moved.
And a second. You got them both.
Second.
All right. And a vote. Go ahead, call it, Dale.
Trustee Walshipski,
Yes.
trustee Van Riper,
Yes.
trustee Putnam,
Yes.
Mayor Mosher.
Yes. Thank you. Now, you have the treasurer's financial reports to you in an email. I saw those just before I got on the television tonight. So with that said, we'll go to the clerk. I'm sure she's ready to tell us a little something.
Abstract number 24, general fund, $9,699.23. Water fund, $2,073.99. Sewer fund, $3,969.88. Cemetery fund, $475. And trust and agency, $82.64 for a total of $16,300.74.
Motion to approve.
So moved.
And a second.
Second.
And a vote.
Yes.
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 Get all those, Dale?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay, then the water sewer re-levy is completed, and I'm going to send the same need the same resolution as last year, but the numbers have changed. So the numbers are $82,939.44 with admin fees. So I'll need a motion to
All
have that
inclusive?
resolution.
That's the total, right?
Correct.
That's, okay. Motion to re-levy the water sewer bills this year.
So moved.
And a second.
Second.
Call it, Dale.
Trustee Walshipski,
Yes.
trustee Van Riper,
Yes.
trustee Putnam,
Yes.
and Mayor Mosher.
Yes, thank you.
And then at some point, you never know, I may need the petty cash for the collection of the tax payments. And if you could just authorize the treasurer to for the regular $250.
That's right. We need to transfer the money from the general fund to the petty cash fund. So can I get a motion to do that so Dale can have change for her taxes?
Sure. So moved.
And a second.
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 Okay, call it, Dale.
Trustee Walshipski,
Yes.
trustee Van Riper,
Yes.
trustee Putnam,
Yes.
Mayor Mosher.
Yes.
Okay, I was approached by Corey Demilis, our attorney, excuse me, our judge, village court judge. And they would like to switch banks from MBT to Community Bank in Cooperstown. I don't know, I said I would bring it up just to put it out there, but I don't know what you will require or how you want to discuss that with them.
Okay, I'll tell you what, Julie and I will take that up with the judge.
Okay.
See what she needs from us and what we need to do and what would be her motivation to do that.
Well, that was going to
Okay.
be my question.
I think it might be convenience. Because there's not,
Yeah,
there's
I
never
did
a-
influence.
sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, they I didn't ask any questions. I just said I would put it out there so that it was
Sure.
made, the board was made aware of it, their desire.
There's not a standing amount of money in there that would be losing any kind of interest. It's kind of a pass through, I think.
Mhm.
So we'll talk to her about it. Can you let her know that?
I sure will.
Thank you.
Two more things.
Go ahead. Go
You
ahead.
sure?
Yeah.
Okay, I don't know about the Memorial Weekend Parade, Memorial Day Parade for the village to
Okay.
sponsor the American Legion, but we could put that out there as we have in the past, just in case it's doable.
Okay.
I believe they plan on canceling that. I got a call the other day and that's the direction they're leaning, I believe, to cancel it.
Okay.
Okay.
Well, they need to come to us for the insurance, right, Dale?
No, they don't need the insurance if the village sponsors it.
Well, okay, they need, yeah, right, but they need for us to sponsor. They need a resolution for us to sponsor it.
Right.
So if they haven't done it by the next meeting, then there's no parade regardless.
Well, the next meeting's after the Memorial Day.
Yeah, we can't just offer to sponsor it, can we?
We have in the past, but they have always come to us in the past prior, and they have not come to me. But
That's what I mean.
last year they forgot.
Oh,
Yeah, so I'm just covering the bases if need be.
Yeah.
That's all.
Well, does the village have any objection to sponsoring the Memorial Day Parade if they choose
If
to
it
have?
hap-
And if it's actually an option to them, because right now parades are being canceled left and right.
Mm-hmm.
And,
If it is a legal option, then I have no problem with it, but
Yeah.
it's one of those play it by ear things, I think, right now.
So can we give them their permission contingent upon the prevailing circumstances?
Yeah, I would.
Sure.
All right, so do you need a motion, Dale?
I do.
And can you word it somewhat like that, or do I have to repeat it?
No, I'll use the same as last year's.
Okay, and make sure you put contingent upon the prevailing conditions.
Exactly, yeah.
Right, because we're not encouraging them to break the law. So we need a motion then, and a second,
So moved.
and a second,
Second,
and a vote, call it down.
And trustee Walshipski,
yes,
trustee Van Riper,
Yes.
trustee Putnam,
Yes.
Mayor Mosher.
Yes,
And then the last thing is I just wanted to remind you, now, as long as there's a set date for the village elections being September 15th, if we could just set the organizational meeting once again on 9/21, the Monday following that, and at your requested time available.
did I read somewhere that the official year starts immediately after the votes are, the final canvass?
The official year starts the first Monday following the village election.
It does, okay, all right, I think I misread something then. So what's the date of that Monday?
9/21.
All right, is there any objection to a 6 o'clock meeting?
No.
Is a different time better?
that's fine with me.
Most of the work has been done unless it seems necessary to go back and revisit any of the policies. Most of this meeting will be appointments, right, Dale?
I'm sorry?
Most of this meeting should be appointments. We took care of most of the policy unless something is objectionable by then.
Right.
It's mostly appointments that
Correct.
night, so it shouldn't be very long.
Correct.
Okay, so 6 o'clock is okay?
Yeah.
Yep,
Yeah.
I also want to talk about getting back to physical in-person meetings. I'm sure we won't be able to hold a public meeting for a while, but we should think about an actual group meeting in the same room and then continuing to live stream as we can and figure out maybe how to get public comments in. If somebody would want to work on that, I'm sure it would involve a camera and a computer. Do you have any?
what's required?
I think in order for us to, I think the meetings will be more productive if we can be in person, at least the board.
Oh,
And I think it's
yeah.
going to be available to us soon, probably after the end of this month. I'd like to see us get some kind of, have some kind of procedure in place so that we can just go right to and hopefully schedule maybe next time our next meeting or maybe the beginning of June in our normal meeting room.
Mm.
As long as, essential workers are being called back and then circle after that.
Sure.
And then couldn't we, even if we have to sit 6 feet apart, I think we
Yes.
should try.
Yes, and then,
Definitely.
and still not invite, public audience, but we have to provide for them, so it'll require, some more streaming. And I think we have to look into that because right now, Dale, can you explain again? We don't own the, YouTube, right?
No, we don't. Well, we don't, it is under the village's name, but we're borrowing it from Justina.
Okay,
So it would be the same method as what we're doing right now.
okay. Look, do you know enough about that to see what we need?
Yeah, I do. I was thinking that all along while you've been saying it, that I could probably look into that. I do know quite a lot about that stuff, so.
And I know your brother knows as much too.
He's that's my second thought is if I can't figure it out, I'm sure he could. So he's
Right.
pretty good at that.
Good.
Computer geek.
While we're talking about returning to work and the things that we'll need, Dale, you're gonna have to give some thought, I think, to how you want to run the office. I don't know that you're gonna want to open it right away, but we have to have some way for people to pay their taxes.
The same as that we've been doing the water bills.
You think that'll work all right?
I think it's been smooth sailing.
Good. So, I know you asked for change because people pay for these things in cash and require change. Is that gonna be a sticking point?
I just want it in case it, because the tax collection goes until October. You know
Yeah,
what I mean? So it's just, to have on hand so that if we're lucky to be able to open the doors once again, it's already in place.
yeah, I understand that, but as far as collecting before that time that we can open the doors, is that gonna be a hindrance, not being able to give, change? There's that many people paying cash.
I have no idea what to expect. In the past, they have paid, a lot of them come in and pay with cash in large dollar amounts, but they can't get to the bank as easily anymore either. So I've been getting checks for everything.
Okay, well, that's good.
That is the upside of it, yes.
All right. All right, thanks.
You're welcome.
All right,
I have a question.
go ahead.
Are we able to take debit cards?
No,
No.
we have no way to do that with the program that we have.
Okay.
But trust me, I'm looking into it for everything else because it's a sign of the times.
Yeah.
I think credit cards might be a little rough too, but we'll look in on that too.
Right.
Okay. That's it for me. Dale, do you have anything else you need?
Well, I do want to just hitting upon what Trustee Walshipski just mentioned. I did speak with tech support. They did upgrade our water sewer program to allow for electronic payments. However, at this point, they still will cost the person who's making that payment. I just wanted information on it because people were asking about, they call and they'll ask about it. So I want some answers for them. I think once they get it to where they can just do it for free, I don't know if it's that way or if they're willing to pay $1.75. And this is just for the water program right now.
Wow.
But that is an upgrade in the water sewer program software right now, but it's not in use as yet.
Is that $1.75 setup or $1.75 transaction?
Each transaction, they would have to pay an extra $1.75, and they want to get here to avoid the 46-cent penalty. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
yeah.
All right.
So, but I am looking into it.
Okay. Our
But I am all set.
Go ahead. What?
I said, but I am all set.
All right. How are water sewer collections going? All right.
Yeah, a lot.
Okay. Good.
Yeah.
All right. I'll turn it over to trustees then. Trustee Walshipski.
Nothing different on the constabulary. I just talked to Mark the other day, and we're just kind of waiting until we can get together and decide exactly what we want to file for.
Yeah. Trustee Van Riper.
I have nothing to add.
Okay. Trustee Putnam.
I have one thing. I've been talking to the town. They are looking into changing the garbage company from Casella to the hometown.
Okay.
And I am not sure if they're going to do it yet or not. They haven't gave me a complete heads up. But I didn't know if the village would be interested in following suit if they do change over. Because I know hometown's a little cheaper.
Mm-hmm. Dale, do we have a contract with them? With Stella?
No, we do not. We had a contract in place in the beginning, but then they up the rates anyways, and break the contract each year.
Okay. So we're free to leave whenever we want?
We are.
All right, let's take a look into that, see what kind of rates the hometown could offer.
That's it.
All right, Joe Cone, you're still on.
Yes.
Are you
Uh,
awake?
Quick question. We're responsible to keep the village dump secure. How's that
Yeah.
going? I've been down a few times and I see every once in a while that the gate is unlocked at nighttime.
Yeah, sometimes it depends on who was in there last, really, that closes it. We've been trying to keep it closed, but I
Okay.
mean, if the town goes in there and they forget to close it, or sometimes we allow residents to go in there if they're doing projects or something
Okay,
and they want to bring their own stuff down, and then sometimes they don't close it. I need to start going down there more often and making sure it's closed before I leave for sure. But after I leave,
okay,
if the town went down there, it's not,
right.
you know.
All right, we're at the.
Well, I know Fridays, the town, they haven't been working Fridays. I don't know if they're gonna start up doing that or not. But I do know that there are people that do have a key to that padlock that are not town or village employees. You know, they're contractors that just have a spare key. Why? I don't know. But
Should we consider changing the lock?
I would think that would be the best thing to do.
Wouldn't be
I
a
mean,
bad idea.
All right, Joe, let's think about that, see what you think, talk to your guys about it, and make sure that the town is covered. Get control of some of these keys that we have out.
Okay.
And,
Um,
yeah, because I've been told they don't even know how many keys are out and who has them.
All right, well,
So-
let's get started with the dump then.
Yeah, I'll talk to Tim about it too.
All right, thank you. Yeah, make sure you keep him, and we don't want him.
Yeah, we
Uh,
would
Right.
have to give one to the garbage company, or one or two, or whatever.
Right, okay. All right, anybody else?
I have one other thing that I've thought of.
Go ahead.
What's people's opinion about picnic tables in the park?
You mean as far as gathering?
Yeah, putting like one or two out. Is it
I think
is
we
it
might have,
yes, no?
we might have to wait on that. That's
Okay.
that violates some of the social or the physical distancing things that we're trying to encourage.
Yeah, I'm not sure when they're going to do parks and recreation, if they're going to do that in the first phase or the second phase.
But we did talk about the benches, Joe, right?
Right.
Benches go out on the street.
Mhm.
They don't encourage gathering as much as a table would, but people need to sit down every once in a while on the way up the street.
Yeah, I've
Right, I
actually had
understand.
people ask me about them, and I said whenever we can get them out.
Yeah, I understand that.
Okay.
It was just a thought. We were thinking about that today, so I
Yeah,
figured I'd ask.
Well, that's
So
good.
no picnic tables. We're gonna
Yeah.
try and start now that we're gonna get more people back. We're gonna try and start cleaning the bricks next week.
Okay,
And as soon as we get the bricks cleaned, the benches will be out. This week we'll probably put the benches out in the park.
okay.
So
All right.
maybe not all of them, but maybe a couple.
You just keep them spread out, that's all.
Right.
All right. All right, if there's nothing further then from this board, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
All right, I don't think you need a vote for that, Dale.
Okay, I'll keep my mouth shut.
All right, thank you, everybody, for your attendance tonight. We'll see you soon.
Have a good one.
Good night.
Everybody be safe. Good night.
Night.